Ghosted. The silence is loud, and the absence speaks in riddles. One moment there was connection, real or imagined, and the next, nothing. No closure, no explanation, no respect. Just digital dust and a slowly growing ache. If you're here, you've likely felt the sting. Whether it was someone you were just beginning to care for, or someone you thought was deeply invested, their vanishing act left you questioning everything. But this isn't just about dating. It's about dignity, about how to reclaim your calm, your composure, and your power through the eternal lens of Stoicism. This video isn't going to tell you to get even. It won't waste time villainizing the other. It's about how to rise in silence, in strength, in self-respect. We're going deep today. Very deep. Each chapter will pull you through the fires of reflection and out into the clarity of emotional strength. You'll understand how to unshake yourself, and by the end, you'll feel centered, clear, and grounded in a way that no ghoster could ever reach again. So take a breath. You're not here to chase shadows. You're here to become the kind of person whose presence is the only answer they'll ever need. And before we begin, if you find value here, subscribe to the Everlasting Stoic, hit that like button, and stay with me until the end. Because we're not just healing from this, we're transforming it. 1. Don't take it personally. Ghosting feels like a personal attack, but the truth is, it rarely is. One of the first principles in Stoic thought, echoed by Epictetus, is that it's not things that upset us but our judgment about things. The silent disappearance of another is not what causes your suffering, it's the story you've attached to it. The internal narrative that says, I wasn't enough, I must have done something wrong. If I had been more attractive, more clever, more whatever, they'd still be here. But let's pause. Slow down. Because those thoughts, they're assumptions wearing the mask of truth. When someone ghosts you, it says far more about them than it ever does about you. It might reflect immaturity, avoidance, emotional unavailability, or even cowardice. But their decision to vanish without explanation is a reflection of their character, not your worth. The Stoics taught us to focus only on what is within our control. Their choices, their behaviors, their silence, not your domain. Your power lies in your response, not in preventing someone else's absence. When we personalize ghosting, we take someone else's decision based on their own inner chaos, fears, habits, or issues, and we make it about our value. That's a theft we commit against ourselves. Don't hand over your self-respect to someone who couldn't even hand you honesty. This is where modern minds falter. In a culture obsessed with validation, being ignored feels like exile. But the Stoic knows, attention is not affirmation. Not everyone who pays attention honors you, and not everyone who ignores you diminishes you. You must learn to separate the emotional sting from the philosophical truth. Yes, it hurts. The brain, wired for connection, interprets silence as a threat. But pain is not always an enemy. It can be a messenger, and in this case, it's reminding you of something important. You may have placed your peace in someone else's pocket, and now it's time to take it back. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Reflect on that. How much of the pain you're carrying is rooted in what you think their silence means? Maybe you imagine they never cared, that it was all a lie, or that they're now with someone better. But all of this is fiction, narrative, guesswork. And every moment you feed it, you drift further from reality and further from your power. So what do you do instead? You reclaim your center. You breathe through the illusion that their disappearance defines you. You stop hunting for answers in their silence and start listening to your own voice again. You say, "They left, but I remain." And in that stillness, you start to hear something stronger. The part of you that's been waiting, not for them, but for you to come home to yourself. Imagine this: a tree in the forest. A bird perches on its branch for a moment, then flies off. The tree doesn't chase. It doesn't bend toward the bird, wondering what it did wrong. It continues standing, rooted, whole. The tree does not take the bird's departure personally. Why should you? Yes, you cared. Yes, it's disappointing. But disappointment is a natural part of expectation. It's not a mark of failure. It's a mark of humanity. What you do with it, though, that's where the Stoic is born. Do you spiral? Do you self-doubt? Or do you rise? The ancient Stoics believed in something crucial, that every hardship is a training ground. Every trial, every betrayal, every ghosting is a test of your character. Will you crumble for someone who vanished? Or will you use that silence as space to grow, to reflect, to become immovable? Because if someone's silence can break you, your foundation was never as strong as you thought. Let this be the call to strengthen it, not for them, but for yourself, so that no one ever again can vanish and take a piece of you with them. Let's make this personal, not about their departure, but about your return. Now, if you've ever blamed yourself after being ghosted, if you've replayed messages, scanned every word for the mistake that made them disappear, then I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what story did you tell yourself when they left? And what truth are you ready to believe instead? Or if you're committed to letting go of shame and choosing strength, drop this in the comments. Their silence does not define me. My stillness does. Let's move forward. 2. Respond without reacting. In moments of emotional disruption, the temptation to react is overwhelming. The silence they leave behind feels like an unfinished sentence, and your instinct is to complete it. To reach out, to demand answers, to write a final message that somehow restores your dignity or gets closure. But the Stoic, the truly grounded soul, understands that the most powerful move is often the one not taken. Let's get one thing straight. Reactivity is not strength. It's impulse. It's the mind's attempt to offload discomfort, rather than face it. The Stoics taught that when someone does something seemingly unjust or hurtful, our responsibility is not to control them, but to control how we meet that injustice. When you are ghosted, your emotions will flare up. The ego protests. How dare they? The heart aches. What did I do? The mind races to craft responses. Hypothetical conversations. Imaginary confrontations. This is natural, but natural does not mean wise. Think of Marcus Aurelius, who wrote in his Meditations, "You always own the option of having no opinion. There is never a need to get worked up or to trouble your soul about things you can't control." That includes the disappearance of others. Their silence, cruel as it may feel, is not your burden to carry. Your burden is your reaction or your restraint. You don't owe anyone an emotional outburst. You don't owe a plea for clarity. You don't need to act like a storm simply because they brought the rain. Because when you react in haste, you reveal that they still control your state. They pull back, and you chase. They vanish, and you spiral. And that's the very dynamic Stoicism is meant to shatter. Responding without reacting means choosing deliberate stillness in the face of emotional chaos. It's not suppression, it's transmutation. You feel the hurt. Yes, you sit with it. You allow yourself to be human, but not ruled. You rise above the animal impulse to lash out or seek validation. Let's be brutally honest. Ghosting is a selfish act. It circumvents the discomfort of honest communication. And in that moment, you are left with the weight of both the loss and the unanswered questions. But you are not required to carry it. The more you accept that closure does not come from them. It comes from you. The more free you become. Imagine you do send that final message. Perhaps it's angry. Perhaps it's heartfelt. Either way, what are you truly hoping for? A response? An apology? A reignition? Are you giving, or are you fishing? And when no reply comes, because often it doesn't, where does that leave you? Nowhere further than you already were. True response, Stoic response, is internal transformation. It's redirecting that emotional energy back into the self, into reflection, into growth, into calm. Seneca advised anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it. And that applies to all emotional reactivity. Let your stillness confuse them. Let your composure speak louder than any message could. This doesn't mean you become indifferent or cold. It means you rise above the storm, not by ignoring it, but by becoming a shelter for yourself within it. When someone ghosts you and you don't chase, when you don't give them the satisfaction of witnessing your instability, you reclaim your dignity in full. No spectacle, no drama. Just a quiet withdrawal of energy from someone who clearly could not hold it with care. Let them wonder. Let your silence become the message. 3. Reclaim your inner peace. Peace is not the absence of chaos. It's the decision to remain calm within it. And when you're ghosted, chaos doesn't always roar like a lion. It often whispers. It creeps in during the empty moments. The quiet of your room, the late-night spiral of thoughts, the obsessive replaying of last words and unread messages. In those moments, you are at war. Not with them, but with your own mind. And the battleground is your peace. Stoicism, at its core, is the art of returning to stillness. It teaches that external events are not the enemy. It's your interpretation of them. Your inner world is your domain. That's your fortress. And if someone's silence can breach it, then perhaps you left the gate open. The question isn't why did they leave? It's why did their leaving disrupt me so deeply? That's where the gold is. That's where the work begins. Because peace is not handed to you. It's forged. It's built brick by brick, in the space between what you feel and how you respond. And each time you pull your mind back from obsession, each time you interrupt a spiraling thought, each time you refuse to text them one more time, you lay another brick. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do, only what you do." This isn't detachment born of numbness. It's detachment born of clarity. Reclaiming your peace after ghosting means choosing solitude over scattered energy. It means turning off the need for external validation and tuning back into your breath, your values, your journey. It's deciding to stop explaining your worth to someone who could not see it. It's choosing stillness over anxiety, focus over fixation, growth over grief. One practice the Stoics used was negative visualization, imagining loss, rejection, and suffering before they happened. Not to dwell in pessimism, but to prepare the soul, to cultivate resilience, to understand that peace is not the reward after avoidance. It is the skill you develop through confrontation. So confront the ache, confront the silence, not with resistance, but with acceptance, because in that radical acceptance lies freedom. Here's a thought. Maybe their silence is a gift, a brutal, unsought gift, but a gift nonetheless, because it forces you inward. It forces you to strip away illusion. It demands that you stop looking for love in places where love cannot speak. Peace is not found in their reply. It's found when you stop needing one. If you've found yourself obsessing, checking your phone, or replaying the last conversation, just know you're not alone. But also know that every moment you choose to come back to yourself is a victory. If you're someone who's finally ready to stop checking that phone, ready to reclaim that calm, drop this in the comments. I choose stillness over answers. I reclaim my peace, or better yet, share what small action you took this week to bring yourself back to center. Did you go for a walk instead of texting them? Did you meditate? Delete their number? Whatever it was, own it. Let's remind each other that peace is not passive. Peace is power. 4. Your worth isn't measured by their interest. In the wake of ghosting, your self-worth often feels like it's been shattered into 1,000 little pieces. It's subtle, but corrosive. You start to question everything, not just about what happened, but about who you are. You might think, if I were more interesting, more beautiful, more successful, more desirable, they would have stayed. But let me offer you a truth that Stoicism has whispered across centuries. Your value is intrinsic. It does not rise and fall with someone's perception of you. Their interest or lack thereof has nothing to do with your essence. Think about that. Someone can fail to see the brilliance of a diamond if they're staring through fogged lenses. The Stoics would say, it is not things themselves that disturb us, but the view we take of them. Their disinterest doesn't mean you're unworthy. It often means they're incapable of receiving what you offered, of meeting your depth, of reciprocating your energy. And let's be honest, we often internalize someone's rejection because we've built a silent contract in our minds. A contract that says, if I give them this much, they'll stay. If I show up fully, they'll appreciate me. If I'm good enough, I won't be left. But here's the kicker. No one signed that contract but you. Ghosting shatters that illusion. It exposes the uncomfortable truth that people can walk away even when you've done everything right. And in that exposure lies your liberation, if you're brave enough to take it. Because when you detach your self-worth from someone else's ability to recognize it, you reclaim your identity. You no longer outsource your value to the whims of another. You come home to yourself. Marcus Aurelius once said, a man's worth is no greater than the worth of his ambitions. So what is your ambition? To be liked? To be chosen? Or to be solid? To be at peace with who you are, regardless of whether someone stays or goes. You need to stop measuring your worth in how they treated you, and start measuring it in how you rise after. Do you want to know how rare that is? Most people crumble. They beg, they unravel, they become shadows of themselves, trying to win back the attention of someone who already looked away. But the Stoic doesn't do that. The Stoic stands tall, not because of ego, but because of truth. The truth that my worth was never on trial. It was never up for negotiation. It was never yours to validate or deny. If you have to shrink to keep them, then they were never holding space for the real you. If you have to convince someone to see you, they never truly looked in the first place. So, let this be your unshakable mantra. Their silence is not a mirror. My worth is not a question. 5. Stay composed and focused. It's easy to let a ghost steal more than your time or emotions. They can steal your focus, Your mind, once calm and directional, becomes scattered. Days pass while you wonder if they'll come back. Check your phone more often than you'd like to admit, or find yourself distracted in moments that used to be yours. But now, I want you to visualize something. A river, wide and powerful, suddenly diverted by a few small stones. The ghosting is just that, a stone in the path, and the Stoic doesn't dam the river or rage at the stone. He redirects and keeps flowing. The greatest revenge against disrespect isn't rage. It's focus. It's composure. It's choosing your mission over your misery. It's remembering who you were before they entered your life, and doubling down on that person, stronger, wiser, and more self-possessed. Seneca reminded us, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And how much do we waste? Refreshing a screen, reliving a conversation, crafting messages we'll never send." The time you spend chasing ghosts could be time spent building an empire within or without. This doesn't mean suppress the pain. It means transcend it. And transcendence is not passive. It's an act of war against distraction. It's a declaration. I refuse to let someone's absence become my obsession. So what does composure look like in practice? It's waking up and choosing discipline over doom scrolling. It's going to the gym even when your heart feels heavy. It's reading something that sharpens your mind instead of drowning in your thoughts. It's showing up for yourself, especially when they did. It's remembering that the path you're walking is far bigger than the detour of their exit. You are building something sacred with your life. And that requires your attention, your energy, your direction. Don't scatter that sacredness trying to decode someone's avoidance. You were not meant to live in confusion. You were meant to live in conviction. Now, if you've ever felt like ghosting pulled you off course, like it distracted you, derailed your momentum, I want to invite you to reclaim that forward motion. Tell me in the comments, what part of your life are you refocusing on now? What project, goal, or pursuit are you turning your energy toward instead of them? And if you need a single sentence to declare your return to self-mastery, write this: I choose focus. My energy belongs to my purpose, not their absence. Let's keep flowing. 6. Strengthen from within. Let's be clear about something. Ghosting doesn't just expose the other person's character, it also reveals your inner structure, your emotional scaffolding, your boundaries, your ability or inability to sit with the discomfort of the unknown. And in that sense, ghosting becomes a test, a harsh one, but a useful one, because it gives you feedback on the parts of yourself that are still fragile, that still crave, still attach, still depend on the external to feel whole. Now, don't confuse that with blame. This isn't about shame. It's about power. The Stoics believed that every trial is an opportunity to fortify the soul, to identify the cracks in our self-image, and fill them with the concrete of inner work, to become so complete within ourselves that no disappearance can dismantle us. When someone ghosts you, they hand you a moment of silence. What you do with that silence becomes your soul's architecture. So you begin, not with them, but with you. You begin with honest inventory. What parts of me still seek validation in the gaze of another? What stories did I build about this person that had nothing to do with who they really were? Where am I giving away power that was never meant to be handed over? And then you strengthen. You build routines that don't depend on motivation, but on discipline. You set boundaries not just with others, but with yourself. You stop letting emotional impulses dictate your behavior. You meditate, journal, train. You feed your body well and your mind even better. You become the fortress, the kind of person who doesn't just survive ghosting but uses it like a whetstone, sharpening their sense of self, their spiritual depth, their emotional independence. And here's the thing, most people never do this. They numb, distract, date someone new before they've healed from the last. But not you. You are not most people. You are the everlasting Stoic. You understand that true power comes not from attention, but from alignment. Not from being seen, but from seeing yourself clearly and choosing to evolve. Ghosting gave you a moment. You're turning it into momentum. And when you do the work, not to become more desirable for them, but more whole for yourself, you reach a state that no ghoster can touch. So if you've already started this work, if you're waking up earlier, journaling, confronting your wounds, I invite you to share one thing you've done to strengthen from within. It might inspire someone else who's still in the dark. Or if you're ready to commit now, drop this in the comments. I am my own foundation. No one can vanish with my strength. Let's keep building. 7. Make yourself the priority. That one of the most powerful and painful truths ghosting can reveal is that somewhere along the way you stopped making yourself the priority. You started waiting, hoping, rearranging your schedule, overthinking your words, shaping yourself to fit what you thought they wanted, rather than simply being. You made space for someone who couldn't even stay long enough to occupy it. But what if I told you that this act of being ghosted is the universe, life, the logos itself whispering, "Come back to you"? Stoicism doesn't ask us to become emotionally numb. It asks us to become emotionally disciplined. And that discipline begins by centering the self, not out of selfishness but out of alignment. If you are not the axis upon which your own life turns, you will forever orbit other people's gravity. You'll keep drifting, disoriented, fragile. Marcus Aurelius warned us not to let our minds be carried away by desires for things outside of our control. When you make someone else your center, when your mood, self-esteem, and sense of meaning depend on their presence, you're no longer living your life. You're renting space in a story someone else abandoned without notice. So this is your invitation to reclaim the throne. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in clarity. You wake up each morning and ask, what does my soul need today? What does my path require? What must I give to myself that I foolishly hoped to receive from someone who was never ready to offer it? You shift the gaze inward. You nourish your body because it deserves care. You feed your mind because it deserves wisdom. You create, build, move, breathe, because those are acts of returning to center. Do you know what happens when you become your own priority? You stop chasing. You stop settling. You stop clinging to people who treat your presence as disposable, because you've already chosen yourself. Let's be honest, when they ghosted, you felt abandoned. But how many times before that had you already abandoned yourself? Ignored your needs, silenced your voice, dismissed your gut. This isn't just about what they did. It's about what you will never do again. This is your line in the sand. This is your vow. From this moment forward, you are not a backup plan, not an afterthought, not a whisper waiting to be heard. You are a priority, not in their life, in your own. You don't need to convince anyone to value you. You just need to stop devaluing yourself. So I invite you to say this out loud or write it in the comments if you're ready to live it. I will not abandon myself for the comfort of being chosen by someone else. Or better yet, tell me how you're putting yourself first again. Maybe it's something small, a morning ritual, saying no, redrawing your boundaries, Let's remind each other self-prioritization is not selfish. It's sacred. 8. Cut the cord cleanly. One of the most dangerous instincts after being ghosted is the compulsion to leave the door cracked open. To wait. Just a little. Just in case. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're struggling. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe they'll realize what they lost. Let me be direct with you. Maybe doesn't serve you anymore. Maybe is a cage, a prison built out of illusions, false hope, and delay. If someone has ghosted you, truly disappeared without respect, without effort, without even the decency to explain, then you owe it to yourself to cut the cord cleanly. Not later, not gradually, now. The Stoics believed in the clean, rational severance from things that no longer serve our highest nature. Epictetus said, "If something external causes you pain, it is not the thing itself that disturbs you, but your perception of it, and this you have the power to revoke. When you continue to entertain the possibility of their return, you stay bound not to the person, but to the idea of them, and worse, the idea of what could have been." But let's look at reality. They made a decision, or perhaps they made a lack of decision. A passive drift into silence. Either way, they communicated something, didn't they? That they weren't willing, that they weren't capable, that they weren't present. Why continue holding a place for someone who has already exited the stage? You must grieve the story. Yes. You must allow the pain. But then you must be decisive. Delete the number. Block, if you must. Not out of spite, but out of clarity. Remove their digital fingerprints from your life so that your nervous system can finally rest. Because every time their name pops up, or every time you scroll back through messages, or you see that last scene online, it reopens the wound. This is not just about removing them. It's about removing your attachment to a phantom. Because as long as you chase ghosts, you won't build anything solid in the real world. You are not waiting anymore. You are waking. And make no mistake, this is not easy. The ego will protest. The mind will resist. It will whisper, but what if they come back? What if they've changed? What if this is all just a misunderstanding? But here's the thing. If someone's silence is that loud, your answer has already arrived. Stoicism teaches us to embrace finality, not to flinch from it, to call things by their real name, to let go of fantasy and deal with what is. And what is this. They are gone. And now, you must go further. Further into your life. Further into your discipline. Further into your self-worth. Not dragging the chains of what could have been, but walking freely, intentionally, cleanly. So, I offer you this prompt. If you're ready to sever the last threads and stand in that sacred space of clarity and truth, write this in the comments. I release the ghost. I walk clean and clear. Or, if you've already done this, if you've made the hard call, burned the bridge, and reclaimed your stillness, share what helped you do it. Others need to hear that it's possible. Because it is. And you're already doing it. 9. Let life prove them wrong. When someone ghosts you, part of you might want to show them, to rise out of spite, to become successful, powerful, magnetic, just so they'll see what they walked away from. It's a natural impulse. But the Stoic doesn't rise for revenge. He rises because that's what he was always meant to do. This is the difference. You don't need to prove them wrong with petty wins. You don't need to send subtle messages or cryptic posts hoping they'll notice. You don't need to stalk their story to see if they're watching yours. You've outgrown that game. You Let life prove them wrong. Quietly, naturally, without manipulation or theatrics, because the most poetic justice is not their regret. It's your transformation. The person who ghosted you walked away from you as you were. But they won't have access to the version you're becoming. That version, grounded, radiant, disciplined, fully aligned, is not meant for them. Their presence was part of the old chapter. And this next chapter, they're not written in. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And you waste no more time seeking recognition from those who couldn't recognize you when it mattered. You simply become, not to earn their admiration, but to fulfill your own potential. Imagine this. A year from now, they stumble across your name, and what they see is not just success, but serenity. Not just ambition, but composure. Not just glow up, but ascension. And they'll realize, they didn't just leave. They lost. But here's the twist. You don't need that realization, because you're not seeking revenge. You're seeking peace. They were a moment. You are the momentum. You're not building a life that looks good in the hopes of catching their eye again. You're building a life that feels true, because it's built on the foundation of your own values. And somewhere down the line, when the past comes knocking, you won't feel the need to answer. Not because you're bitter, but because you're busy becoming who you were always meant to be. So tell me this, if you're on that path already, if you're letting life do the talking while you keep building, what are you working toward? What's your current mission, your new direction? Or if you're ready to leave the past to the past, write this in the comments. They lost the old me. They'll never meet the new one. That's stoic revenge. Quiet, purposeful, unbothered. 10. Walk away strong. And now we arrive at the final chapter. Not just of this video, but of this internal transition. Because if you've made it this far, then something in you has already shifted. The ache is still there, perhaps. But now it sits beside a greater strength, a deeper stillness, a new kind of fire. You've come through the spiral of questions. You've resisted the urge to react. You've reclaimed your peace, your focus, your identity. And now, it's time to walk away. But not just walk away. Walk away strong. To walk away strong means walking with your head held high. Not out of pride, but out of clarity. It means no final message, no desperate closure, no lingering gaze. It means choosing silence, not as a reaction to their silence, but as a reclamation of your own inner voice. Walking away strong is about recognizing that your story was never meant to end with someone else's absence. That someone else's inability to hold space for you isn't the measure of your capacity to love or be loved. It's about self-respect, about walking toward your future instead of circling your past. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And that applies here. It takes courage to let go, to stop checking the door they closed, to delete the messages, not in anger but in reverence for your own peace, to step forward without dragging your wounds behind you like chains. You don't need to be ice cold to walk away. You can feel, you can mourn, you can remember the good. But you do not return to a place that abandoned you. You do not seek warmth where the fire has long gone out. You walk away, not because you're over it, but because you've decided that you matter more. So, how do you do it? You redirect your love back inward. You begin to love your solitude, to fill your days with meaning, to take care of the body that carried you through heartbreak, to master the mind that once tried to make sense of silence. You practice presence. You don't just move on. You move forward with grace, with grit, with grounded strength. And maybe they'll never see the strength it took for you to walk away.
Maybe they never deserve to.
But that's okay, because you'll see it. And that's enough. Conclusion. And now, here we are. If you're still with me, then know this. You've already begun to reclaim your power. Not by chasing, not by getting answers, but by turning inward. By walking the path that Stoicism carved long before your heart ever knew what it meant to be ghosted. You've learned not to take it personally. You've chosen response over reaction. You've reclaimed your peace, refocused your energy, made yourself the priority. You've cut the cord. You've started rising. And you're walking away not wounded, but wise. This isn't just a video. It's a transformation, a ritual, a rebirth. And the person you are now? They are no longer waiting for texts that never come. They are no longer looking back. You've become your own anchor, your own proof, your own peace. Now, if this journey resonated with you, if even one sentence cut through the noise and helped you reclaim something deep within, I invite you to do 3 simple things. Subscribe to the Everlasting Stoic so we can walk further together. Like this video so others can find it in their moment of silence. And most importantly, share your reflection in the comments. Not because I need the algorithm to know you were here, but because someone else might read your words and find the courage to walk away too. Tell me, what was the turning point for you? What truth landed hardest? What line are you carrying with you? Or if you have nothing to say, say this: I rise with stillness. I walk with strength. Until next time, remember, you are not what they did. You are what you choose now. And now, you choose power. You choose peace. You choose to walk away strong.